Welcome to Enlightenment of Change with Connie Whitman of Whitman & Associates. Here's Connie.
Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman, and thank you for joining us this week. So every week, as you join us, I hope that between my guests and myself, our tips, strategies, ideas are all implementationable immediately. For me, it's always about you taking information, tips, and ideas and implementing them like today. Action creates results, and that's really the premise of the show for me, for you. If you're following me on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe, and I would love for you to rate and review the show. Write me your little love notes. I read them, and they matter to me. Same thing if you're listening on a podcast app, Apple Podcasts, whatever. If you can rate and review, I'm honored, and I would love to hear your feedback. So as always, thanks for joining us today. So my motivational quote is by Robert Frost, and he says, in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. Now, do you believe that the spirits of people who have passed on can communicate with us and maybe teach us some lessons in our lives today? And this is a strange question possibly to explore, yet evidence is being shared that proves the spirit world and our worlds actually coexist and can actually communicate. So get ready as my awesome, amazing guest shares her personal story of loss and what she has learned as we discuss her new book, From Death to Life. Terri-Ann Russell is a healer, channel, past life regressionist, and medium, and she lives in Sedona, Arizona. Old Jersey girl, by the way. She is a wife and mother of 5 kids. She does not look it, and the ages range from 30 to 10. Now, in July of 2019, her son Anthony Joseph died from an unexpected medical complication. And as quickly as he left his earthly body, he returned from the spirit world with knowledge and information to share about where he is and what he's doing now and how humanity can learn to reconnect with our loved ones in spirit. Now, Terri-Ann channels her son's spirit and shares their story of courage, growth, and healing. Now, Terri-Ann and Anthony Joseph take us on a journey of loss, love, and finally acceptance, and she leads us on a voyage of self-discovery. Tremendous story. Terri-Ann, thank you for being on. And Terri-Ann, do you want Terri-Ann or Terry? If you'd like Terri-Ann, I'll certainly do that.
It's Terri-Ann.
You got it. Okay. So first of all, the book, I think anyone who is dealing with any type of loss from death to life, please go out and buy it. I think it truly can change your life. So first question, can you share with us your journey and just how this all began?
Yeah, it actually really began long before Anthony passed. My daughter is 10, and she was born very sick. We were living in Jersey at the time. She was born with a similar condition that Anthony passed with. So she came into this life with intestinal issues, and she had 4 surgeries, and then she bled internally for 3 years. Throughout that 3 years, traditional medicine really failed us. We traveled all over the country looking for a physician that would help us, that would work on her. It was too risky. She could die. So she bled internally. She's had over 40 blood transfusions in her little life. That lasted about 3 years, and through energy healing, that introduced me to start out with Reiki. I needed an alternative method to start to heal her. And so she is about 4 years hospital-free now with no blood transfusions. And her doctors are astounded. They're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, energy healing. And they're like, oh, that can't be. And I'm like, well, the proof is in the pudding, okay? This child has had no blood transfusions in over 4 years now. So you tell me what happened in that time.
That's just crazy.
It has. It's been, so that was like the beginning of my journey going back into, I was always drawn to energy healing. In fact, when my boys were little, I took a quick class at Barnes & Noble's back early 90s, and it was about Reiki. So I was always drawn to that type, and growing up Catholic, we have the laying of the hands. So, it's very natural for me to work with my hands and feel the power within my hands and my own body, my own spirit. So that was a very natural progression for me when I started learning Reiki. It came very easily because of my Catholic upbringing. And then if you fast forward to 2019, last year, My husband and I were renewing our vows in Vegas. It was Aunt's 27th birthday. We went away for a week together. He showed no signs of illness. He was very happy, go lucky. He never said he was sick or anything. About 3 weeks later, I was guided to go up and see him. He lives about an hour away from me. And again, he just said he was a little tired. And he's like, "Why are you here again? We just spent a week together, Ma." And I'm like, "I don't know. I just felt this urge to come up and see you." And so that was a Friday. Tuesday, we had gotten a call that he had passed. And we got a knock at the door. It was an officer who came to our house. So 2 o'clock in the morning, they woke us up and they said, Anthony had passed. At that point, they didn't yet know as to why, what happened. They thought it was natural causes. The police investigated because he died at home.
Yeah.
His roommate was there. His roommate called. When the paramedics arrived, he was still alive. So what happened? Through the autopsy, we found out that his pancreas, like Sophia's intestines, his pancreas started to become necrotic, and that wrapped around his spleen, and he bled to death in the matter of hours. And so he went to urgent care where he lived, and they sent him home with a stomach bug diagnosis. So he was looking, he was searching. My oldest son looked on his computer. He was searching what's happening with me. He thought maybe he had appendicitis. When it got to the point where he couldn't handle it anymore, his roommate called 911. And I have to tell you, it was the worst feeling in my entire life when I was notified that he passed.
Ugh. That you are here and able to, I want to cry, speak about it is, as a parent, it's the worst thing that can happen. So that you're here sharing this story is inspiring me, and I hope it inspires the listeners, because everybody is dealing with some type of tragedy, right? And how to navigate it, I think is important. I think people need help, and that you're so gifted in already this realm of what's possible, I think is just really cool. And that you took the time to write the book is amazing of you to do that, right? From that vulnerability to share this story. So thank you. I'm honored that you're on. I have never cried.
I didn't want to, though.
You didn't want to come on.
I didn't want to write the book.
Really?
He was very adamant from the beginning that I needed to share this information with people and share our experience, but it was so painful for me.
Ugh.
I went through a very dark period of wanting to commit suicide, and I knew that wasn't me speaking. I knew that through my work that suicide would not bring me to him, that there would be no guarantee that I would be with him.
Yeah.
So I knew that, but still having that dark attack on me, I had to really fight tooth and nail from the bottom to bring myself back up. And one of his messages is that, even though you may be hearing these things, these thoughts, and you are going through this horrific experience, it may not be you thinking these things. So it could be, when our frequency, I talk about frequency a lot being in the business that I'm in. When our frequency is very low, and I talk about this in a chapter in the book, alternate personalities, lower vibrational frequencies are able to enter our energy field, causing depression, alternate personalities. A normal person that normally wouldn't be suicidal, people could say what they want. Oh, well, she lost her son, so she was suicidal. No, that was not me speaking. I knew that was not me speaking. So many people don't know that can be an alternate personality.
Yeah, especially because you had other kids here, right? So, and then coming up through the Catholic religion to abandon the other kids, like that, of course, as a mom, as much as you don't even want to get out of bed, trust me, I would assume that I can't imagine. And I'm not trying to say I can. But I don't know that I'd be able to leave the other child that's left behind, right? Talk about creating even more distress in the ones left behind. As a mom, how do you do that? So I totally get what you're saying. Talk to us about who, and in your book you have Ant, you call him Ant, which is a Jersey thing, I think. Instead of Anthony, it's, hey, Ant, what's going on? And Butters, who was he? Why Butters? Like, talk to us about that, because it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so Butters, he got the name in high school or middle school, and it was because Butters is a character on South Park, and Butters had very strict parents. So his friends would call him Butters, or Sir Butters too would come up once in a while. But Ant was different than my other children. So at 3 years old, Anthony told me that he chose me to be his mom. And so at that time, I was a mere 25, I think, about that time. And I was like, well, you're crazy. Like, you chose the wrong one.
How cute.
But he was different. He had this overwhelming urge to always help people. He was very articulate from a young age. He would meet you. He'd say, hi, my name is Anthony. Shake your hand. How can I help you? He was always the one who was looking to help other people. So if somebody was being bullied or somebody was upset, he would just offer you his life, the shirt on his back. And people knew that about. So in Jersey, we lived in a very small community. Hackettstown is 3 miles long. It's an old Victorian town. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
So my kids grew up in this very close-knit community. And so even the people after he passed, now we've been here 9 years. He came to college out here in Arizona. Even the people that he went to elementary school with had reached out to me. Teachers had reached out to me. They were all stunned and shocked that he was no longer here because he was such a bright light and they shared story after story. I had heard so many stories of how he helped people that I was not even aware of. Yeah. That just, he made their day or he did something for them. Even from a young child, they took that with them through their life now, and they're all in their 20s, So as a mother, I knew who he was, but on a soul level, I don't think I even could conceptualize the soul that he was.
Yeah. Wow. That's, so he clearly was special to be able to say to you that I chose you as my mom, because we know we choose this body to house through our life, and we choose our parents and our siblings, and we choose that scenario. So that he knew that as a kid, and you weren't in that realm yet with the Reiki and the healing and the channeling, right? So clearly He did get the right mom, by the way. He picked wisely and he did a really good job. So talk to us, when did you become aware that Anthony speaking to you was actually going to be a constant contact situation, and it wasn't like your typical, your mediumship kind of sessions? Like, when was that aha moment for you?
Yeah, well, early on, he came in within hours, which is not typical for a spirit. So he passed at 10 o'clock in the evening. By 2 o'clock in the morning, we had the officer in our house, and I could hear him screaming at me. It was like sort of garbled at that time, like there was a glass wall separating us, but I could hear him screaming, I'm okay, Ma, I'm okay. You have to listen to me. And so, but I couldn't really make out I would get bits and pieces at that time. So that's not typical either. So I reached out to my soul sisters, my Sedona soul sisters, and I was like, I've not had this experience as a medium. Most of my clients who come in have had their loved ones pass for at least 3 or 6 months. So I've not had this personal experience where within hours he was able to communicate. Because normally there is a rest period and they need to do what they have to do while they're there. But at that time I hadn't realized it would be a constant contact situation. I was just getting bits and pieces, but I wasn't hearing everything he was saying. And at that time I didn't want to hear him. What I think it's important for people to know is they're like, oh, well, you're so lucky you could hear and communicate with him. And I'm like, no, because if I was hearing my son, he was dead. And at that point, I was still in severe shock. I was not realizing that he was dead. I was still very in a state of shock. It took a while for me it was like pulling apart layers. I had to go through the shattering again and relive this experience of triggers, I would call them. The knock at the door would start barking. It would send me into that moment when the officer came to the house, and I would fall to my knees, begging and pleading for God to take me. So I really had to work hard at bringing myself up from that point. I knew about frequency. He was very adamant about me raising my frequency. He taught me a way to communicate with him, and then there's two ways we communicate. I go to his world. It's very natural for me to leave my body. As a medium and a channel, I leave my body all the time. So it's very natural for me to go to him and leave my body. But then he also comes into my world when he has to bring me an important message, or he wants to communicate, or I was channeling the book. It was an everyday situation where he would tell me, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd connect with him, he'd tell me what we were going to write about today, what was the outline of what needed to be talked about in this chapter. And so he went to school, he went to college, his degree is in communications and journalism and radio. My degree is in human services, so I'm like, I've never done this, I don't even know how to start to write a book. And he was like, we're going to do it together. He guided me. So I say, as much as we teach our children in this life, our children are teaching us. And he's still teaching me. He's so far advanced beyond where I am now, or where I might never be. But he is my greatest teacher and my greatest guide at the moment.
But it's funny because he was ahead of most of us as a little person, right? When he was a little boy. So that he knew things that, like you said, you're kind of just learning now as an adult woman. So he clearly was put here for this reason. And, you know, more and more, let's face it, more and more information is coming out, Terri-Ann, right, about the past life, you know, the regression that people are doing, that people are hearing and are inspired or whatever from the beyond, people that they've loved, that, you know, come back and show up in different ways. Now, you keep saying that you can go there. I understand that, okay, that you leave your body and you go to another kind of layer, or the veil, right? You go to the other side of the veil. When he comes to you, do you see him? Do you hear him? You know what I mean? Like, what does it feel like, sound like for you?
So I am not as clairvoyant. So clairvoyant is actual seeing. My clairvoyance is not as strong. So I've only seen him a number of times. I'm clairsentient. So because I am a healer, an energy healer, I feel a lot in my body.
Okay.
So I can feel his presence come in. I may see him walk by and I'm like, that's him. Or I may hear him a lot. So I'm clairsentient also. So I hear a lot of messages. Those messages can come through either in my own head with his voice or outside of my body. When he passed early on, it was outside of my body. He would yell at me, Ma, you have to do this, your heart, this isn't good for you. You know, you have to protect yourself. Because I was under dark attacks at that time, he had to come here a lot to protect me. There was an instance so I was having a dream, and spirit can come in our dream, but also interdimensional beings can come in our dream state, as well as dark energies. That's how, you know, our dreams are also one place where we are very vulnerable to other dimensions and dark attacks. So I was having a dream one night, and in the bed, somebody was squeezing my heart, and I couldn't breathe. And when I woke up, I was actually over my husband, and I was trying to speak to my husband, and I couldn't get the words out. Our smoke alarms, our fire alarms in the house started blaring and woke us up. So within that time, it took us 5 minutes. They kept going off and off. We're searching all over the house for this fire. No fire, nothing to explain why these smoke alarms would have went off in the middle of the night. And I laid down, I was faint, and I said, what just happened? You know, and he said, you were under a dark attack, and I came in to save you. I did it to protect you. So he is my protector. You know, when I tell you that, you know, I've had grandparents who passed, and I've never really experienced grief at this level. Yes, you can say, you know, when your grandparent passes, that, oh, they were 81 or they were 91. You know, they had a great life. But at 27, what can I say? My son had barely experienced a great life. You know, so you have those lower energy levels of grief. And because I know what I know how to intuit what those lower levels are, I was able to see that that wasn't me. But having him be able to protect me like that, and that's only one instance I'm talking about. There's been numerous times that he has had to come into my body and help me raise my frequency because I was not able to do that.
Because of the despair and sorrow of the loss, right?
Yes.
So he was able to come and almost teach you, no pun intended, hands-on, right? Where he actually came into you to help you raise that vibrational energy. That's, you know, talk about mind blow, right? That we are supposed to protect our kids. And here he really is your protector. So I think that's just so fascinating in so many ways. Anybody else in your family? Do they hear him? Does he connect with them, or it's always through you because you clearly have this gift as well?
No, actually, they have been awakened through this experience. So, you know, almost, and I can tell you from doing this work, almost every one of my clients has experienced their loved ones in a one way or another. So when a loved one passed, they try to get communication to us that they're still there. So you may, you know, feel a cool breeze on your shoulder when you're thinking about your loved one, or you may see them out of the corner of your eye, an orb or a light. So all of my clients have experienced something like that. So we are all very intuitive beings. So we are all able to communicate. What happens a lot of times is you blow it off as if it's not real or it can't be. So my family has been able to experience him in many different ways. He had left early on. I talk about in the book this beautiful angel coin that I've never seen, and I've never seen it again, for his youngest brother. And it was about that big, and he walked into his office and he said he looked on the floor, and it was soon after he passed, this beautiful coin. And he texted to me in the middle of the night, and he's like, "Ma, look what I found. What do you think it is?" And I said, "I think Anthony left that for you to show you that he's still here." So they can leave coins, they can leave feathers, they can leave messages. He may move things in the house for like my aunt or my uncle that aren't really able to really see, feel, or hear. So he may move things so that they say, "Oh, well, I put that over there and now it's over there. That's really weird." Or just recently, my uncle said to me at a family event, he's like, "Terri-Ann, I was in bed the other night and I wasn't really fully asleep yet, but I was laying there and I heard Rob." And that's what my son used to call him, was Rob, not Uncle Robert, but Rob. And he's like, "I heard that." And he's like, "Do you think that was Aunt?" And I was like, "Oh, let me ask him." And I asked him, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, that was him."
So, okay, you see, you just said that. Let me ask him. Like he's on speed dial, right? Like what does that mean that you can that easily tap into, or you guys are truly connected every minute of every day? Like, is that how that connection, it's that intense?
So our connection is a little different. So what Anthony has been able to share with me is we've done this many times before. I did a past life regression on myself, and I've done one with myself and one with somebody else. The last one I did with myself, he was actually my husband, and I died. And it was somewhere in the Wild West, and there was a storm, and he watched me die. So he was my husband. And so what I've pieced together through our past life regression and through other medium friends of mine is that when we agreed to come into this life, I chose to be his mom, but he also chose to leave early. He was going to be here only for a little bit of time. It was for the progression of our soul together. So Anthony and I are what you call a twin flame, which is very rare. But because when our soul came to this incarnation, a piece of it incarnated into me and a piece of it incarnated into Anthony. So we are twin flames. So our connection is very strong and intense. And even when he was here, I could tell you, we had a lot of butting of the heads. Our relationship was not perfect by any means. We have very different thoughts and ideas and values. And so a twin flame relationship a lot of times is about that teaching and that growing that comes out of it. So him now being gone in another realm, another dimension, it's still very natural. That connection is still there. So even though your loved one is not with you, I tell everybody there is still that connection. Death doesn't end your relationship by any means.
Yeah, and the whole concept of reincarnation, he said it to you as a little boy. Yeah, I chose you, by the way, this life to be here with you, that he was able to bring that element, because most of us don't remember that we chose to be here in this time, in this situation, in this body. You were surprised that I'm 5'11" and broad shoulders, and why did I choose this stature? There's got to be a lesson in it somewhere. I don't know. Maybe for me to own my power in previous lives. Maybe I didn't own my power. You know what I'm saying? So you wonder, why here, why now, why this stature, why you as the mom, why me as a daughter to my parents. It's such a fascinating concept, and that he's able to teach you with such clearly he's a very old soul, that he has done this many more times than the average bear, so than the average human on this earth, right? So he's a very advanced soul, to be able to even, and the reason I say that is because for a little boy to say that to you, that he kind of remembers that, he has to be a very, very advanced soul to be able to articulate that, especially the little kid, right? Who doesn't even know what that means. So now channeling, so Terri-Ann, channeling takes time and effort. How do you set the tone for a channeling session? And does Anthony come in even without you setting the tone for these times that you spend together? Like, is it a joint effort? Are there rules that you guys have set up? Like, what is that? How's that happen?
I have just been very amazed from the beginning how he was able to communicate with me so quickly. I can tell you, he enters my body a lot because especially in the beginning, I was not able to function. I mean, they carried me into the funeral home and I was screaming and crying to take me. I can't do this without you. And so I would be actually physically on the floor. My husband and my oldest son had to carry me in, and he would come into my body. I would feel this cold enter me, and this peace and this calm would come over me. And I was able to get up, and I was able to speak to people and articulate what I was feeling and what needed to be done. So it was almost like I was a different person than the person who walked into that area. That happened on more than one occasion, that I was not able to get up off the floor, and he would come into my body and raise my frequency and share his energy with me because I was not able to function so early on. But as we went on, it became more natural for me. As he entered my body, it wasn't as intense. In the beginning, when he first entered my body, it was very cold, and I would begin to shake. The frequency, if I can explain this to you and the viewers that are listening, their frequency is so high. A physical being cannot house that much light in our body without exploding. So that's why when we come into Earth, we incarnate into Earth, a lot of this body, the physical body, is very dense for us. So he could only share with me part of who he was, his spirit being, without causing me to go into, an explosion. But my body would physically shake and my body would be cold. And so I would recognize that was him in the beginning. Okay. And I would ask him, and he would say, Ma, we need to heal your heart. Your heart is in trouble. I wasn't aware at that time of the physical aspect of grief. I felt like somebody stabbed me in the chest. I couldn't breathe. A lot of times I had such pain in my heart. So I was surprised at the physical aspects of grief versus the emotional, mental aspects of grief, even in my business. So doing the work with him, he would direct me to the healers in my area. He'd say, need to go see her, and my phone would ring, and like Sedona is her name, who I worked with. Sedona would text me, oh, I think we need a session. So it was all very much choreographed. So he would reach out to Sedona would reach out to me, and we would do that healing together, and he would come into the session, and he would observe. He is everywhere with me that I go. I was at my daughter's school when she was in school at the time, and they were having like a coffee poet night, which totally would have been up his alley. And he was like, "This is so cool, Ma. I can't believe, I wish I had school like this." So it's a lot of fun times. He's there during the hard times. He's there celebrating with us. My oldest son is buying his first house, and he just closed on it yesterday. He's there with us throughout all of that. And so what I want people to know is you can reach out to your loved ones. Even if you can't hear them, they can hear you.
What are, for someone who has lost, someone and their heart is broken, because I totally get, while that grief broke your heart, you had a broken heart, right? Literally a broken, that phraseology came from somewhere, okay? Mm-hmm. So that, how can people, like you just said, they're there, they're guiding you. What are, like, has Anthony shared with you ways that the average person who doesn't have your gifts, right? Clearly you have these gifts as well, because you're probably a very old soul too. What if we don't have those gifts? How do we know to listen and hear, and what should be, like the coin? That was such a great example, right? Of Anthony talking to his brother. But what are some other things that we can look out for? You know what I mean?
I would say first is you need to begin to meditate. You need to quiet your mind, so that you are able to intuit. We're all intuitive beings. We're all born with intuitive gifts. See, feel, hear, just knowing. Have you ever met somebody and you were just like so connected to them? Like how I feel with you. It's like we meet and we have this instantaneous connection.
Absolutely.
There's a reason. And so I tell people what you first should start to do is meditate. Clear out all those cobwebs in your mind and allow yourself to be open, because they will show you. He shares birds with me. I had never seen an owl. And in our yard recently, my husband and I were out in the hammock, and this huge white owl, all we heard was this swoosh, and this owl comes across our yard into our tree and just sat there and stared at us. And since then, he has showed me owls everywhere I go. And so I'm like, holy, like I see owls everywhere now. So that's also a message from the other side. It doesn't have to be you see, feel, or hear, but if you constantly are seeing things, if you ask them to help you and you notice then that you have those goosebumps, or please, I need your help, please give me the strength to go on. And you get that feeling, that residual, that visceral feeling for your physical body, they are there. So really pay attention. I don't think we pay attention to enough that happens in our world. My grandmother, my Italian little grandmother, was 4'11", and she was a spitfire. She would take anybody on in their life, and nobody messed with her. But she loved like pennies. So everywhere we go, if she'd find a penny, she'd pick it up. And she'd tell me, Terri-Ann, pennies, people don't think they mean anything, but they mean a lot. Pick up the penny. So she leaves me actual pennies. So when I go somewhere, my grandmother will leave me pennies. So even if it's something like that, they are communicating with you.
I love it. It's funny. You were talking about the clairvoyance, and then you used another word. My younger sister, we grew up Italian, right? So we grew up in Newark, and my grandparents lived upstairs, and my aunts until they got married, and then we lived on the first floor. But we slept because we had 6 people in my family, right? It was my 3 siblings, my brother, my mom, and dad, and the first floor only had a 2-bedroom. So my brother and my mom and dad were downstairs, and we slept upstairs on the 4th floor, which had 4 bedrooms, and that was it. So we were very close to my aunts and everybody. But my younger sister had this just relationship with my grandfather that was wonderful. Fast forward, whenever she's at a crossroad in her life, he smoked Pall Mall cigarettes, no filter. It was the worst that he could have done. Anytime she's at a crossroad or she's trying to make a decision, she said she will be like, all right, Gramps, like, what should I do? And she'll smell his smoke. So she clearly has it's not clairvoyant, yes, but there's something else. What's the name for that when you smell or you sense it?
I don't remember the name for it, but I do know there is one for smell also.
Yep. So that's what she has. So pay attention to those, what seem like, we discount, can't be. Yeah, it can be, right? You just have to be open to what is possible. And I think we close ourselves off to that. So we're out of time, but I just have to say thank you for being on. And I do want to share the book. Please, everybody, check it out. Trying to find the title again. So, From Death to Life. And it's Terri-Ann Russell. And I want you to go to her website, and it's SedonaSoulSisters.com / and do you want them to go to team / Terri-Ann Russell, or can they just go to Soul Sisters, SedonaSoulSisters.com? Recommends for me here.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go right to Sedona Soul Sisters. I've had people from shows contact Ivory and Roz. They are amazing psychic mediums that have been in the business for over 30 years, both of them, which also is another incredible story that I share in the book. But they're amazing, amazing psychics too. So yeah, go right to Sedona Soul Sisters and look us up.
Does Anthony help you when you're doing readings for others? Like, does he?
Yes, he's in all of my business now.
He's in. I love that he's in all of my, like, he's up in your business, right? Like, you can run, but you can't hide from him.
Let me show you. Did you see the back of the book? There's a picture of him.
Yes. That's
very
awesome.
Old soul. So he comes in. He actually brought me, not too long after he had passed, maybe like 8 weeks, he brought me a mom. And I wasn't going back in the office right away. And I was guided to go to the office that day. And a woman comes in and she's like, I need a mediumship session. And I said, I can't. My son just passed. I'm still very overwhelmed. I can't do this work yet. And she said, please let me tell you why I'm here. And I said, why are you here? And she said, I lost my son, a child. He was like 7 or 8 years old at the time. And I said, and I'm getting chills telling you, okay. I said, let's go in my office and I will work with you. And Anthony came in and Anthony showed me. He actually helped him cross. He put his hand through the veil and he pulled this little boy through and he guided the mother to find me.
Holy moly. You see? So, Anthony was a good soul, here, right? Doing all these wonderful things and just being such a great person. And now he's doing it even from, it's who he is, right? It's just the essence of who he is. And I think we all have an essence of who we are. We just need to tap into that and tap into the others that can guide us. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. I have never cried on the show. So thank you for that, right? That's a first. But I felt you really deeply. And I'm honored, truly honored that you came on and shared your story because, it's still raw. I mean, a year later isn't a lot of time here, but that you're so connected with him has to be a level of peace for you as well, because he probably still jokes with you and torments you like a child would, right? I'm sure there's that
we curse a lot in our family.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
He comes in and he curses, or I've had other mediums read for me also. He's directed me to other mediums, and I'm like, I don't really need a medium. I can connect with you. And he's like, go to this medium. And it was for healing. But she's like, oh my God, he curses so much.
I love it. And
he's
right?
like, Ma, get to the fucking light.
Oh my God, I just love it. Like, come on, raise that vibration. What's wrong with you? So he's slapping you around, right? Even while he's not here. I mean, these are such great stories, and I am honored that you came on. So again, guys, check out Terri-Ann, SedonaSoulSisters.com. Check her out. Use her, and I mean that in a good way. You connect with people. I mean, COVID. We're doing Skype all the time, right? So I'm sure, or Zoom or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. And you guys, please, I hope you need a little more of me in your life. So if you do, go to WhitmanAssoc.com. So it's WhitmanAssoc.com. Resource page, free stuff, downloadables. My book is there. You name it, it's there. You could contact me directly. Of course, the podcast shows are there, both YouTube and if you just want to listen to audio. Again, I'm going to ask you, please, whatever platform you listen and check out my guests and I, do a review, rate us, please, and maybe even make comments about topics that you'd like us to share. Like if you'd like Terri-Ann on again, let me know. I'm sure you're cool with it. I'm totally cool with it. She's my Jersey sister, so yeah, baby, let's do it. And it's okay to curse on the show, so that was very cool too. I think you're the first person to say the F word on my show, so this was a lot of firsts today, Terri-Ann. A lot of firsts.
Surprise.
Hey, I love
Maybe
it.
we can do it in person when I'm in Jersey when we're doing our traveling.
That would be beyond cool. So yes, as you come back east, please look me up and we'll connect. Thank you again, and thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, and thank you for writing the book. But thank you for writing the book. It's through pain, right, comes this level of joy and peace for others, right? It's beyond you now. The scope is beyond you, what you and Anthony are trying to create. So thank you so much for that. And you guys, I hope you will join us weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter what you're going through. I really hope my guides, I was going to say guides, you're a guide, but I hope my guests and I illuminate whatever that next step is for you. So today's conversation, we talked about the meditation, quieting the mind, and seeing what is possible, feeling what is possible, being accepting of what is possible. So I really hope you heed Terri-Ann's recommendations and advice. Okay. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. Thank you, everyone. I do wish you a wonderful week. Please open your mind to what is possible beyond what we can see. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.